All right, let's take a look at exercise 5. There's not much different here from exercise 4. As you probably figured out in the lecture, there's not a whole lot going on here, with the exception of one new method, g.setColor, and then of course the color class, which we talked about in the lecture portion. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to call setColor, and we're going to set the color to red. That means anything drawn after this point will use the red color that we've set the brush to. Again, I consider the graphics object as my paintbrush. Instead of draw, we now see that our shapes are prefaced with fill. The arguments are exactly the same. The arguments for each of these methods are exactly the same. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time going over them. And again, notice that they're drawed filled in. And the one that you really sort of catches people's eye is the arc. The idea behind the arc is the reason the arc looks like it does is because you start at one angle, you move partially around the circle. In order to fill that in, it draws lines into the center of the partial circle and fills that entire area between those two lines and the arc in the back. It fills that in with color. So it's going to look like a slice of a pizza or a portion of a pizza, or maybe even all of a pizza but a slice taken out. So it just depends on how big the arc is. Again, not much new here. You have the 13 color constants at your disposal. However, if they don't work out for you, you can create your own color constant. You can create your own color object. And you'll see I have a line commented out here. I'm going to close this window. And you'll see I have a line commented out here. And essentially, I've created my own color. When you create a color, you have to give it a name. Then you call the color constructor, and you provide it 3 pieces of information: the amount of red, the amount of green, and the amount of blue, RGB, Roy G. Bibb, to mix together to create this color. Keep in mind that every pixel on your monitor contains 3 lights, a red, green, and a blue. And basically what we're trying to say is how brightly to shine each of those lights. You can go anywhere from 0 to 255. You are not limited to integers. You can use floating point numbers if you need finer control, but it must be a floating point number. Again, you're still limited 0 to 255. In this case, I've created sort of a shade of purple. When you're using custom colors that you've created, when you call the set color method, you can simply provide the name of the name you provided to the color object. And when I run this application, and I'll drag this down inside the window so you can see it, you'll see the color changes, and this is sort of an eggplantish type purple, depending on the way your monitor's set up. And this is a mix of 50 red, 25 green, and 100 blue. And that gives me that nice deep purple. As far as colors go, when you're creating a custom color, there is no real format. You can use some sort of color picking application to help you figure out the amount of red, green, and blue. But ultimately, you're just going to have to play with it until you get it to look the way you want. That wraps up exercise 5's walkthrough. Again, there wasn't much here. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I would like you to wait until the end and write them down, and wait until the end and send them all to me if you do have any questions. Otherwise, you may go ahead and take a look at the lecture for the next section, where we're going to talk about the scroll panel, or the scroll pane object that we can use to add scroll bars to certain components.